Hello and welcome to another episode of Wellness with EAC. My name is Nicole Gwanzura and I have the distinct privilege of being your host. It has been such a fun journey. I love getting on this podcast every single Wednesday and talking with y'all about all kinds of topics around career wellness, faith journeys. We also talk about how those subjects intersect with our personal and professional lives. Some weeks it's a one-on-one. We are, talking about the things that you're submitting comments about, things that are happening in the world of higher education, career development. And then other weeks we are having some guests, amazing guests that are telling you about their stories and their journeys, where they're coming from. And the goal of having these guests is one, I'm just really curious, and I'm sure y'all are really curious. When you see someone on social media, you don't get the full picture. You just have certain assumptions about who they are, where they're coming from, what they're all about. And part of bringing guests is to demystify that. What is the story behind a person's journey? So you can also see, one, we're all human. Can we just level at that? We're all human. And the things that, make us who we are is surprisingly made up by the distinct things that happen throughout our journey. So that's one of the reasons why I bring guests. And the second reason as well is, as these guests are sharing about their stories, if there's something you resonate with, I'm hoping that you're able to take away from that some things that you can continue on with your journey, some things you can do differently, or some things you can be encouraged by. And my third is really just a promise to you that when I bring on guests onto this show, they are fully vetted, y'all. And anyone that is coming on to this podcast, I know and trust the work that they do, and trust that when they come off of this podcast and you reach out to them, they're not going to act brand new. They're not going to act different on you. The way that they show up here is authentically how they show up in their work and outside of this. And so today's guest is no different. I am so excited. I have Coach Nick on the show today. He is the co-founder of Because of Why. He really focuses on teen mindset coaching and is someone who's really, really passionate about mindset growth. So I'm going to turn it over because I want Coach Nick to tell you a little bit more about him and his story. But first of all, we've got to introduce the man. So Coach Nick, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I want to say a few things. I really started my journey through mindset and personal growth just the same as you, with curiosity. I'm just like, I had to know, I had this itch in me. I'm just like, what makes me different from all these other people who are wealthy, successful, happy? They look like they have it all together. When in reality, I mean, not all of us do, and that's okay. We're all figuring things out. But it was that underlying question, what is the difference? And I was like, we bleed the same. We put on our shoes in the morning. We go to work. We do something. But what is the real difference? And this is when Carmen and I were just so curious. And we actually started our first podcast, Because of Why. And it was going good. We were like, how can we take this another level? And we're just like researching, looking up things. And we're like, we can become coaches. What is that? I've only heard of like a fitness coach or basketball coach. And everything just kept spiraling from there. We just kept following our intuition, and we became certified coaches, and we've always been obsessed with mindset and personal growth. I mean, for me personally, it started really when I was around 12 years old in middle school. And I actually went to a Christian school, and I was coming to the private school, brand new to middle school. And I was like, I don't know what to expect. I don't want to be shoved in lockers. I've been seeing like these movies. I'm like, no. And I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And it blinded me in my path of what I wanted to do with my life. But some people may see it as something really bad, but I also see it as a blessing. It's like we always say with God, it's more of, we're like, God, give me strength, please give me strength. And he's like, all right, here's a storm. We're like, why did you give me the storm? And that's where the strength is.
Yeah.
But for me, it really happened when my parents, they worked in DC all the time. So they dropped me and my siblings off at his house all the time. there. He'd give us coffee. We're not supposed to have any coffee. Just it was a really great time. He's my best friend, and I was really not social with a lot of other kids my age.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we just went to the hospital, and he just had all the cancers in the world. He was surviving an oxygen tank. It just wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in a hospital, and it was around the same week before or around Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And I just remember my cousins and I were just like, just we don't know what to do, just wandering around the hospital as bored kids, and we're just confused at what's really going on. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember uh, I actually prayed a lot, and
Mm.
this was I was really really big on my faith, and I was just like, God, please, like this guy. There's like 60 people in this tight little cubicle, and I was just like, so many people love him. Like, well, why are you doing this to him? I just had
Yeah.
all these questions and curiosity, like, why him? This dude is such a great guy. Like, you can't let him anything happen to him.
Right.
And I remember when he actually just got out of the bed. He was just all excited. He's going. We're like, we're gonna go home tomorrow. We're just like, great. And the next day, he was back in the bed, where he
Mm.
couldn't open his eyes. And I remember he couldn't eat or drink. So I believe it was my aunt, my mom attached like a popsicle stick to a little 1 by 1 inch sponge. He
Mm-hmm.
dipped it in water, put on his lips, and that's what he was surviving on. So it
Mm.
was just a matter of time of when he was gonna pass.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sucked. Just watch someone you love just slowly go.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad was like, he talked to my mom. He was like, hey, I got to take the kids home. Everyone's like, this is the night. We got to say our goodbyes. We're playing Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra. We're talking about all the great memories. We're talking about how we have like a lot of people were talking about regrets. I should have hung
Mm.
out with you. I should have drove around with you when you asked me. I should have been there for you, but I wasn't. And it was a very emotional time, not
Mm-hmm.
to say. And sometimes it still gets me. I'm shaking a little bit right now just to say
Yeah.
it. And I remember when I was like, Dad, I'm staying here.
Mm-hmm.
His last breath, I'm staying here. You're not going to take me anywhere. And then they're like, no, you're going. I was like, no, I'm not.
Mm.
And they made the decision. They're like, okay, he wants to be here. Let him be there. So I made my decision. That was a really confident decision to me. One that I regretted for a couple of years, but then one I've
Mm.
come to realize it was a blessing in disguise.
Yes.
And I noticed so that night, it was actually my little sister's birthday as well. She just turned 2,
Mm-hmm.
and he passed the same day. What
Mm.
happened was I saw, I'm not going to go into the details, but I just saw when he passed, he fought for his life, and you kept hearing the heart rate monitors, terrible, and the screams, but you saw one little tear go down. And I take that lesson as just really the little things cost the less, but they weigh the most.
Mm.
And I was just like, at that moment, that tear was just everything to all of us. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't necessarily, I don't know, it wasn't anything about money or clothes or whatever he had, nothing valuable. It was just more what we value at that time was our time with him.
Yeah.
And so after he passed, I was just like blaming God. I was just like, why did you do this? And I was
Mm.
like, please, why didn't you take me instead of him? I wanted to give myself for him. And I was just like, you didn't listen to me. You did this to me. You did that. And I was blaming the doctor. I was blaming the entire world. I was like, the world's against me. I'm
Right.
tired of this. I'm done with this. And so I started going to middle school. And keep in mind,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know what to expect. So I went in the corner. I was just nowhere near anybody, antisocial. I was fighting myself in my head. I had this huge stuttering problem where
Mm-hmm.
I would fight myself in my head to say certain words with like L's, M's, N's, D's.
Oh wow. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it was a very traumatic moment for me. And
Mm.
I remember just everything bad that you can really think of a kid to just process death in front of his face at such a young age, and then go back to regular normal life in middle school is it's insane. But
Right.
what's crazy is that I hid this story for so long that
Mm-hmm.
my parents, I don't think they still know what happened to me.
Mm. Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's something, it's really a journey I've learned to grow up fast with that made me who I am today. I just
Mm.
always see it as, why did I stay there? Why did I make that dumb decision?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, dude, that was that's why I'm here where I am today. And
Yeah.
it's because I want to help other teenagers who tend to be antisocial. They're always on their phones. They're not getting off. They're not outside playing. They're not physically fit. They're not mentally fit. They're not nourishing their minds with books.
Mm.
I believe it's really an environment, the influence. You can turn a really great kid into someone bad by the friends they hang around with, their environment, and they can live in a really great area. I've seen it
Oh yeah.
different areas, and it's just very interesting to see. And that's really my story of
Mm.
my own journey, what I went through to change my mindset, change my attitude about life, stop blaming God, stop blaming the world, stop blaming the doctors. But stuff happens, storms happen, but that's where the
Yeah.
strength is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that in such a deeply honest and candid and such vulnerable way, because part of that demystifying, when people look at Coach Nick today and you've got this extremely bubbly personality. I mean, you and Carmen are so well respected in the community and the work that you do. Um, Everybody knows. You mention because of why, they say Carmen and Nick. You say Carmen and Nick, they say because of why. And they know. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, growth mindset coaching. Literally, you're spitting that out all the time because of the efforts that you all are putting, not even necessarily on the business, but on the way you serve your community, on
Mhm.
the way that you give back to your community. And it's so, when they see that, it's like, oh, so evident of who you are today, but not everybody knows of who you were then
I love
and
that.
what things shifted, right?
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that. And I think especially with youth, because when we think about the rate of students and just young people who are unaliving themselves, the rate is now as low as the age of 10, which
Mhm.
is terrifying. So knowing that, there's resources when they're facing harsh topics such as death or just how to balance school or what's happening in middle school. It's a land of hormones shifting
Yeah.
and people testing things. And it's a tricky thing coming from this immigrant who moved from Zimbabwe third quarter in seventh grade, and I was the new kid in middle school. I did not know anybody from elementary school. I didn't even know anybody in the country. And here I am, almost at the end of the year, dropped into a new environment in
Mhm.
seventh grade. So I will always have a special place in my heart for middle school and the heart to help and heal
Mhm.
middle school children. But I really appreciate that you said that. And I think one of the other things I wanted to note before we continue the conversation is I think so many people also from a faith perspective blame God and they're like, why, right? And we can talk more about that and you can add into it too. But I think that mindset shift ends up happening, like you're saying, it's like, don't blame God, don't blame the doctors. Part of the way that when you're like, God, give me patience, you're
Mm.
going to get a situation. He doesn't just lay it on you. You're going to get a situation and an opportunity to exercise patience,
Absolutely.
right? And that's the difference between God being a loving father versus God being a genie. And I
Mm.
think people mix that up. They're like, God, you did this. If you're so good, why did you do this? And they forget, well, he's a really good God. He's a really fair God. He's a just God. But we live in a broken world.
Mm.
So when he's already saying in scripture, oh, you're going to face troubles in this world, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So
Mhm.
to me, it says, well, I could just do life without him and experience the hurt of the world, or I could do life with him. And when I experience the hurt of the world, I'm reminded that he's my comforter, my peace, my protector, my, like everything.
Yeah.
So that when I look at things, now it's less of God, why did you let this happen? But God, what do you want me to learn through this?
Mm.
God, in the heartbreak, I'm going to remember your faithfulness in this because you care about everything that I do and I'm experiencing. And because it's a broken world right now, it doesn't mean it'll be that in eternity. So that's where like my mindset shifts,
Perfectly said.
right? So I appreciate you saying that because so often it's just like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? And you forget we live in a broken world. Bad things are going to happen.
Mhm.
People are going to pass. I always say it's kind of morbid, but I'm like, the one thing guaranteed in life is,
Death.
yeah,
We're all gonna die one day, yeah. But the
yeah.
interesting thing, real quick, is that a
Mhm.
lot of people know they're gonna pass one day, but they still act like they have eternity.
Yes.
Where people don't take action, they don't. go after their dreams, or they don't work for that car or build that family relationship. It's more of living day by day. And
Mm,
someday I'll do it, but that someday never comes.
right, right. And so can you speak to that, right? How can people then start making that shift, right? When they're in a position of, I don't want to do it, right? There's so much in society that's saying, I think of Bruno Mars, the lazy song. I don't feel like doing anything today. And we have those days, but the more you have those days, the more you're training your mind to just not make the effort. The more you're training your mind that I'm just going to put this cup over here. I'm not going to put it away. It'll take me 2 seconds to put it in the dishwasher or wash it, but I'll do it later. I'll do it later. Then it just becomes your habit. It just becomes the way you operate. So, could you maybe share a tip on how to one maybe start to recognize, right? The first issue of no, the first step of knowing of solving a problem is acknowledging it and recognizing it's there. So, can you tell us maybe one, how to start even recognizing some of those habits and patterns that are hindering your mindset, and maybe one thing that can help to start to move the needle?
Yeah, I believe one of the most powerful things that anyone can do, and this is the biggest word and it starts with a D, discipline.
Mm,
I used to really undermine discipline. I used to not take it serious. I used to not take my life serious. But
yeah.
it's not until I started discipline, everything began to change. So the
Hmm.
first thing I did was really just be honest with myself. Hey, I want six pack abs, or I want to make this amount of money, or I want to be this close to God. Where am I right now? I
Yeah.
got to be brutally honest. You lie to yourself, how are you going to grow? You're not going to know
Right.
where you are. And after that, it's really about not making the huge explosion of changes. Like they're like so huge, but you
Hmm.
start with the small things. Like you
Yeah.
said, I made a rule. If it's less than 60 seconds, do it now. So
Yeah.
if it takes me, let's say, drying a cup 2 seconds to go put it away, go put it away. Because if you think about it, the small things are like staircases and they add up to that bigger
Mm,
staircase where you can just hop up over. But it's like,
hmm.
when you think about a ladder with huge steps where you can barely reach the first one, then you're not going to do it. You're going to give up straight away. I mean,
Right.
that's the same thing that happened with me when I started my fitness journey and mindset journey. Was I started small. I
Hmm.
started doing maybe one lap around the block, and then I went to two, and then I went to three, and then I went to four, and then I was like, hey, I can run a mile every day of my life. And I've been
Mm,
doing it every day of my life to keep me fit. Or, hey, I need to nourish my mind. Let me read 2 pages today. Okay,
right.
2 pages. How about five? You keep setting those goals, keep exceeding your expectations. I'm supposed to read 10. I read 20. Okay.
Right.
How about you read 20 for the next week? That's a challenge. I
Hmm.
do that and I just keep it going. But the little things always add up to the biggest things. And if you can
Mm.
stay disciplined and consistent with the little things, the big things will pay off. Absolutely. But I want to say that I've learned, and I get this lesson a lot from God.
Hmm.
Discipline and consistency is the name of the game.
Yes.
If you think about it with your podcast, you're winning at your podcast because you're still going every time. You're consistent, you're disciplined at it. And there's times, hey, I don't feel like doing it, maybe, or I don't have time for this. I got to do this. I'm running errands. I got to do this. But you still do it. You always find a
Right.
way. And that's why you're winning at it. Same thing
Yes.
with social media. A lot of people expect to grow 1 million followers within a week.
Hmm.
You got to stay consistent at it every single time. It's the same thing with your mindset, same thing with your fitness journey, same thing with getting closer to God. You got to keep feeding yourself the little things so the big things expand.
Oh, that is good. That is good. There's so many gems there, but that key of the little things, that consistency, that small, and then also I love that, you're not despising small beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
And that scripture too, like that, you're not despising that. The 2 pages becomes 5 pages, becomes
Yep.
10, becomes 20. The one block becomes 2 blocks, becomes 3 blocks, becomes four, becomes a mile, becomes this.
Absolutely.
It's so important. I remember and interestingly enough, so my husband used to be an athlete. His whole life, he's played soccer. That is his thing. That is his jam. It keeps him fit. And he played college soccer all of his college years. And he really enjoyed it. And then he started playing, he plays casually now. But one habit he took from there was he has to exercise daily.
Mm.
If he does not exercise, he nothing feels right in the world. He will delay everything else in life. Work could be on its busiest day, but he is not the same if he does not exercise.
That's just like
And
me.
I don't understand. For me, I'm like, I don't understand that. I mean, this man runs like 8 miles a day.
All right, he's got me beat right now.
You know what? He's got you beat in the mileage, but y'all are competing in terms of consistency. I tell you that because I'm like, this is wild to me. And before my mindset was different of like, well, why do you go get to do this and get to do this and get to do that? And then I was like, wait, no, but what are the things that I need to be prioritizing and making time for? And I think sometimes that happens in society of, well, why is this person now growing in that social media followership? Why does this person do this? But I posted 3 times. Why didn't I get 1,000 followers? Matter of fact, my engagement went down. Why? Because you have not been nurturing it.
Comparison kills dreams.
Yes, it really, really does. I actually have been reading this book. Gosh, I don't know where it is now, but oh, it's down there somewhere. Nona Jones. It's a book called Killing Comparison.
Mm.
And it's such a good book. I've been recommending it to so many people
Write that down.
because um, between what I've learned from her and also this woman I listened to on a podcast, I think she works for Nike, and she was talking about you'll never reach the end of your race or hit your target if you keep trying to run somebody else's,
Mm.
right? Like whatever Susie's doing, whatever Johnny's doing, I'm sure you're experiencing this with the youth that you're coaching of like, even if that person has much more materially or
Mm.
according to society, they have more,
Yep.
your mindset will still allow you to achieve insurmountably more
Hmm.
regardless of the resources you start with, because as you continue to grow, then you know how to seek for more resources. You know how to do much with little. And so when you know how to do much with little, when you get more, you're going to be exponentially more successful. But I could go on, Nick. I
Hey,
want to know.
I can keep going too. So I want to say, actually, you just like sparked my mind. And I
Yeah.
was just like, I like saying our minds, what we plan in it, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. It's just gonna grow. And I remember I was
Yes.
actually reading a scripture like about like a date like yesterday, last night, where
Hmm.
it's talking about tend to your own garden and stop trying to tend to other people's or see what they're doing. And I was like,
Yes.
sometimes I'm like, but you have to go back in your lane. I understand
Yeah.
that. And it's really interesting because you said about the fact like it doesn't really like it matters where you come from, but don't let that be the judge of where your future is going to be.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is we all have brilliant minds, and our
Hmm.
subconscious minds are like gardens. The seeds we
Hmm.
plant in it is who we're going to become. It doesn't matter if we're rich, it doesn't matter if we're poor, it doesn't matter if whatever situation that is handed to us, what matters is the choice you have. What is your
Yeah.
attitude going to be today? Do you expect a great and happy life by being negative, hanging around negative people, talking trash about other people? Not really, but
No.
it's what you plant in your mind that propels you forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can only um, continue to nurture those seeds by watering them,
Mhm.
by reflecting on what decisions you made before that you can make differently, what circumstances, what people you had before. One of the things I think that happens in earlier, whether you're going through school, early school, friendships, work, what happens is there are people that, because I've always known this person, I've known them my whole life. Therefore, I'm going to continue to have them on despite how poorly they talk about everybody,
Yep.
despite how challenging it is. And I feel like I don't have a good mindset after I speak to them. But because
Mhm.
that's my homie, that's the homie, we've had this relationship, you realize that you don't realize rather that that person was there for a season And when your mind shifted, that person had to go.
Hmm.
They had to be left behind wherever they were because if they weren't growing with you. And the last example I'll give is I was listening to Nona Jones, same woman who wrote Killing Comparison, but she was saying that you need to know the difference between the people who are assigned to you versus the people who are attached to you.
Ooh, ooh, that's in the book. I'm gonna get it.
That's not in the book. That's in her latest
Oh, okay,
sermon.
okay.
But in the book, there's lots of gems too. But this was a sermon she just preached recently. So she is like she does marketplace ministries, I like to call it, because she used to work for like Facebook and like worked on
Oh.
some really cool things there that were also bringing just kind of like marketplace ministry to the greater community and things like that. But she goes around speaking, and one of her latest speeches that's pinned on her Instagram was that. And I was like,
Mm,
this is wild. You need to be reflecting on this. What happens? That friend was probably attached to you. Maybe they were assigned to help you get out of a situation or help you understand what was going on at home because you
mhm,
had similar backgrounds. But when you got out of that house, I see this so often with a lot of, okay, this might be a little controversial, but I see that a lot with folks that come out of certain areas and neighborhoods. And once they're really, really successful, then they keep going back there and trying to still
mm,
assimilate.
mm.
Um, it's not, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't go support where you've come
Absolutely.
from. Don't support, I'm not saying don't support the people you grew up around. But once you're on a certain level, there are things that now you can do to equip and empower and place programming. But you have also now gone into the next stage of your experience.
Hmm.
And those people, help them or help them help themselves to get out of that situation, not you continue to return and
Yeah.
just say here, here, here. Because if their mindsets are not on the same place, it'll actually do more harm to you and help stop you from elevating in the way that you should. So that's what kept coming to mind for me about the people who are attached to me versus the people who are assigned to me.
I actually like saying like that was awesome.
Yeah.
I like saying how if we set our standards up here, let's
Yeah.
say to respect people and to never be mean to people because you don't know what other people are going through. You don't know their story.
Yes.
You don't know their situations.
Mm-hmm.
But then someone you hang around with, hey, it's probably, let's say, my best friend I've known for like 10 years. They've been with
Yes.
me through everything. I've known their family. I know everything about them. Their standards are right here where they just step on people. They don't care who they're talking to. They're negative all the time. They
Yeah.
make you feel like crap. They don't make you feel good. They don't make others feel good. But a lot of people, because that relationship is so strong, they tend to lower their standards to where they become them.
Yes.
And that's why I say don't lower your standards for them. Have them come up to your standards if it's
Yes.
really good, right?
Right.
And I remember a quote by Dan Pena. He said,
Mm-hmm.
"Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future."
Mm-hmm.
And that changed right there. And it's
Yep.
very interesting because right when I came out of high school,
Mm-hmm.
totally different person. I remember when
Yeah.
Carmen told me we had the conversation. We're like, why did we act like that? That was like so cringy. Like, I don't understand. But it's so
Yeah.
crazy that it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter where you come from, the environment you're put through, your school, you're a totally different person. And then when you go
Yes.
home, you're a totally different person again. And it doesn't happen until you're actually out of that school, that environment, where now you're not being influenced by everyone's attitude, habits, discipline, their negative jokes. You're not influenced by that anymore. And
Yeah.
that was a mindset shift for Carmen and I as well.
I love that. And it's so important because sometimes you have to go through those lessons, right?
Yep.
Because when you think about later, when you're sharing your story, when you're sharing your testimony, the Bible says we will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony.
Mm,
And so that's how we're helping not just us overcome, but helping others overcome their
yeah.
circumstances. So you're like, look, I went through a cringy season, like things that, like, I went through some things. I said some things. I remember my life before I was saved. Like there's just things that I'm like, I remember who I was, but then I can talk to the next person and say, where you are right now, I've been or I can resonate.
Hmm.
And where I am today has not been an overnight process. So let's talk about that, right? Like you're saying, like helping them elevate to that
Overnight
standard,
process. Wow,
right?
that's crazy.
And right, it's not overnight. And then not only when the elevate, if they speed past you, you also have enough of a sturdy mindset not to be jealous of them.
Hmm.
Because some people will be like, I put you on. I
Oh my
got you here.
God.
How dare you
Oh.
surpass me?
Yep.
That's not what it's about.
Hmm.
So, oh my goodness. I mean, there is so much there. And there's so much you've been talking about overcoming and just experiencing and how you're sharing this in your everyday work. So Coach Nick, talk to us about what is one thing right now as you're reflecting in this season of life.
Hmm.
What are you really proud of?
You know, actually, I really like this one I just came up with.
Yeah.
What I'm really proud of is my level of authenticity. And I
Mm,
believe that's something that really lacks in this world from
yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're a teenager, if you're in middle school, high school, if you're an adult or 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I had the persona, one of my challenges actually was when Carmen and I went into the business world, I felt
Mm-hmm.
that I had to be this suit and tie guy, like, hello, everyone, like different kind of voice. I'm like, dude, that's not me. I'm not
No.
smiling. I'm not happy. I'm not speaking about my why and being vulnerable and having a lending hand, but I'm always like, hey, do you want to buy this? Do you want that? I just want to take, dress up in a tie and in a suit. And I'm just like speaking over here, like this is how it's supposed to be in the business world. But it
Right.
didn't like everything changed for Carmen and I when we just started being ourselves, when we just started
Mm-hmm.
talking like how we talk, when we just started being more positive around people who were making negative jokes, speaking negative, speaking down about each other, other people, and even each other.
Mm-hmm.
But that is really something I'm still doing every day is just being authentic. Like
Yes.
for me, actually, I heard this quote, I believe it was yesterday, the day
Mm-hmm.
before. They said, you can be the juiciest peach, but not everyone likes peaches. Mm. I know that was my same reaction. I was like,
Wow.
wow, that's crazy. It doesn't
Wow.
matter it doesn't matter what you do, how you act, just be yourself and you'll attract the people around you. But some people just may not like you and you just have to accept that
Yes. You're
because
not for everybody.
yeah, it really is.
Wow. You may be the juiciest peach, but some people don't like peaches.
Hmm.
And you cannot be a peach and an apple and a, what is that
Okay.
combination atrocity that some people make at Thanksgiving? Turducken?
Yes, I don't even know what that is.
It, look, it's a turkey and
Awful.
a duck and some chicken. It's chicken and a duck inside a
Oh,
turkey because I
that makes
guess maybe
sense.
by size.
Hmm.
And then you make a turducken. Or then maybe you have what is right now summertime, right? So plum cots
I don't
because
even
we
know
could
what these things
decide.
are saying.
I'm like, so it could be a plum. We couldn't be an apricot. We wanted to be a plum cot.
Ah.
So, I'm not gonna lie, they're tasty. My kids love them, but I laugh every time I see them
Hmm.
because, or cotton candy grapes, because grapes are already
Oh yeah.
incredibly sweet.
Hmm.
And then we need to make them sweeter by making them taste like cotton candy. It's always some combination, but the authentic fruit there is the plum, the apricot, is the grape, is the turkey, duck and chicken, all individually, right? That's the authenticity there.
Yeah.
And then what makes them a little each different is the characteristics, the shading of the skin, the texture, the everything. So I love that you're proud of your authenticity because this is who you are.
Hmm.
And through your life and circumstances, you wouldn't be this combination of who you are had you not gone through some things, had you not experienced through some
Absolutely.
things. So this is now authentically you, and that's how you can operate as authentically you in the business world. And I
Mhm.
think I was reading one of the reviews, um, actually from Chris Peden I think it was like on Google, Google reviews.
Yeah.
And we know that he is, I mean, one of the best accountants in our area and his firm and the work that he does. But then he was also just reflecting on, even in all his years of experience, how you all were able to also impact his mindset.
Hmm.
And that's powerful when you think about that. That's really powerful because your authenticity, you bring the sauce.
Oh, I
What
like that.
you're doing is not like your work. Um, when you talk about mindset growth coaching, when you talk about social media management and support, none of it is individually unique. We know the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun,
Yeah.
right? But you are the sauce.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Carmen is the sauce. And that between with that combination, that is what makes the work you do, your approach to the experience unique. And I
Hmm.
don't think people always understand that. They look and they're like, well, everybody's doing that. Everybody's doing that. But what's unique about you?
Hmm.
What's unique about you? What's unique? What's authentic about you? Let's use middle schoolers, right? Let's talk about the youth that you're talking with. Oh, everybody's talking back to the teacher. But what's unique about you is that you don't.
Mm.
What's unique about you is that you're respectful. And you know, the reward that comes out of that is you're probably going to be in less trouble at school. And two, the opportunities that slide on the teacher's desk about an award that's coming up, a scholarship. Guess who's more likely
Hmm.
going to get offered that opportunity? Guess who's going to go out of their way to write you a recommendation?
Absolutely.
And guess who will do the opposite if you decide it's cute to be the class clown all the time and be disrespectful for clout?
Yeah. I like saying with authenticity, it how much more valuable is the Mona Lisa original than all the remakes? Absolutely more valuable. So be the Mona
Oh
Lisa,
yeah.
stop being the remakes of everyone else in their life.
Yes. Yes, just be you at the end of the day. I when I worked in admissions, people would ask me number one question all the time, how could I set myself apart? How could I, have a better application? I'm like, just be you. Be
Yeah,
you.
just
That's
be
what we want to
you.
know. What makes you different? Because the question is the same for every single person submitting an application, but the response is different. How
Hmm.
you contribute to the community, to the network, to everything is different. So I love that authenticity is what you're really proud of. Now let's switch up the tone a little bit, because we know that in life you face some challenges sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, so t- can you give me an example of a time you've overcome adversity and what did you learn from that?
Hmm. Time overcome adversity. That's a good one. Now you're really making me think.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let me think. Well, my example was initially authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
I want to switch it up a bit.
Okay.
Okay, you said adversity.
Yeah.
So I believe it came really down to my spiritualness with
Mm.
God. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember where I just had this friction every day where something didn't feel right. Where I wasn't going to church, I wasn't talking to him, I wasn't praying, I wasn't reading. And everything was just, it felt like all the puzzle pieces were just thrown everywhere. I'm just like, I need some structure, I need a foundation to go on. And I was like, I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And honestly, the only way I really overcame that life situation where I felt like everything's falling apart and also
Mm-hmm.
blaming God as well, I just took a step back and I reflected that when you point, there's what, three fingers pointing back to you?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had to count
That's
real
it.
quick. I was like,
That's it.
one, two,
Yeah. I'm like,
three.
wait, which one? Okay, I have to point too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just realizing that it's not God's fault. It's not your parents' fault. It's not your cousin's fault, your friend's
No.
fault. It's your fault. You have to come to realization to be totally honest with yourself that you are where you are today because of your choices, the
Mm.
attitude you take every day. It's not the world that's the problem, it's you. If you keep getting the same results, if you keep wondering why everything's going down, how everything goes sour, how you're losing all this money, how you're
Yeah.
gaining more weight. That's you. It's not the fitness trainer. I actually used to, when Carmen and I went to the gym, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm not getting the results I want. Carmen, we got to switch gyms. So we went from one gym to another. And then I was like, okay, I don't like this gym. I'm not getting results either. Let's go to this one. And we're finally at this one. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why would I change gyms? It didn't have to do anything with the gyms. It was the level of my own commitment, my level of discipline I had for myself that
Yes.
changed everything. It was me that needed to change,
Yes.
not everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's mine.
Yeah. You know what? And that is because even for the times though when it isn't your fault, what you can control is how you react to it.
Mm-hmm. You know,
Um, and there are things that, I reflect on and I'm like, but every time I said I didn't like that about this person, it happened multiple times. I was the common denominator.
yep.
And I've been laughing a lot lately, watching videos, like just like I reflect on different aspects. And I was watching this one video, and this woman was like, I prayed for my marriage and I prayed for God to change my husband, and he changed me.
Mm,
I said, oh, you know what? Because whatever you're reflecting, right, on the other person, when I'm looking at aren't these business connections working? Every time I do this. No, but I'm the common denominator.
mm,
I need to set myself. But like you said, when you're going back and you're looking at like, okay, what am I not doing in terms of being disciplined, right? What am I doing in terms of just following the calling that God has for me and being obedient in that?
mm,
Because at the end of the day, like what's that song says, Christ is my firm foundation. He never lets me down. When everything around me is shaken, I've
yeah.
never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. And so there are days and I just walk in and I'm like, I've got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. Literally, because that is the whole point of it. You're like, the world will never stop. Life will never stop lifing. Let's be real.
Oh.
Never.
Mm-hmm.
But your mindset around it, the way you think of it, where your foundation is, if that is not sturdy, what is that saying? We used to have it a lot in college on our shirts. Um, I think it might be, oh gosh, maybe Malcolm X. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You reminded me,
Hmm.
actually, I believe humans are programmed backwards. Now, it sounds funny, but if you really think about it,
Yeah.
we try to control things we can't control, and
Hmm.
we end up not controlling things that we can control.
Yes.
Or, like, I remember, oh my gosh, I don't know how many people I've heard say it. I won't believe it until I see it.
Yes.
It all starts with the mind, and then it comes. You got to believe it, and then you'll see it. But it's always, I need to see it here. Hey, if
Yeah.
God's real, I need him to move this water bottle. I used to say that when I was younger. I was like, come on, God, move the water bottle, just do an inch.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? You're right about that. Because what's the whole point? When you think about setting a vision, right? There's some things you can envision. There's some things you can say the greater goal looks like this. But the steps in between, you're going to have to take some action
yeah,
because faith without works is dead.
mm,
You're going to have to move. You're
yeah,
like, God, I need to do this. And honestly, the definition of faith in Hebrews, anyways, isn't that the belief of things unseen
yeah,
or hope in things unseen? Um, so when you think about that, you're right. We're like, okay, this thing is in my control, but I'm not going to do anything about it because that mountain has not moved.
yeah,
That thing has not moved, even though we have that same power that rose Jesus from the dead inside of us.
yeah,
But you're like, and sometimes God will move it. He will absolutely move it. Some things you're like, that really wasn't supposed to move. But he'll remind you every now and again that he's like, don't play with me. I am God.
yep,
Like, I can if I want to. But if I choose not to, can you just trust that it's for a good reason?
mm,
Can you just trust that I'm taking care of you? Can you
yeah,
just trust that, like, yes, my answers are yes and amen, but sometimes they're not yet, or hey, I have something
not
even
yet.
bigger and greater. But if you try to envision it, my mom was giving me this example the other day, and she was like, if God says, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of money, what is the human going to do? Look for a side hustle, look for a new job, go in search of that money. And God would be like, but I said I'm going to give you that money. What are you trying to do right now?
Yep.
You're supposed to believe me, seek me. But here you are. And now I said, I'm going to give it to you. And you're like, no, I'm going to take control of this. False
It,
control.
yeah. I mean, it's the same thing when we set our goals. We plant the seeds in our mind. We're like, okay, now I need to cultivate them. I need to grow them.
Yeah.
We end up doing our part. Great. Now let God do his part. But a lot of
Yes.
the times we're like, hey, digging the seed. Oh, hey, did it grow? Oh, not yet. Okay. I'll replant it. Oh, wait, 10 minutes later. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. We're like, dude,
Yes.
you're trying to take matter in your own hands and you're not letting God do his part. Because what was the quote? I just read this. It was the doctor addresses the wound, God heals it.
Yes.
And it's the
Yes.
fact that you can take some action, you need to, but you also got to let God do his part and stop trying to be so control of making it your way.
Yeah. 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 Oh my goodness. It's all so good, but I think there's so many standards that are like, oh no, but you need to operate in your truth, in your own
Mhm.
doing, in your own power, in your this. You've got the power, right? You've got the power, you've got this. But I think it's really important to just keep in check of like where is that power actually coming from.
Yeah.
It's either coming from the father of lies or the God of truth.
Ooh,
There's no in between,
I like that.
in my humble opinion. Okay, Nick, I would love to know, what does wellness mean to you?
Wellness means to me taking care of yourself first before you
Mm,
try to take care of other people because you're just going to make that situation much more worse, in my opinion. And I
yeah.
like to say, pour into you first so that
Mm-hmm.
then you can pour into other people. Because if
Yes.
your cup is empty, you, you have nothing to pour. If you don't love yourself,
Mm-hmm.
how do you expect to give love to another person? And then
Yes.
that's where like relationships come in, but that's a whole different topic. But it's that's what wellness is to me, just taking care of
Mm.
yourself first before you try to take on the world to help everyone else.
That is key. That is key. It's like the airplane. You get on an airplane. What do they say? Put the oxygen mask on yourself
Yep.
before you put it on your child, before you put it on somebody else, because by the time you're exerting effort to put it on someone else, you're going to stop breathing. You're
Yeah.
going to run out of the sufficient air that you need. So I love you using that example.
Hmm.
Nick, this has been goodness. I mean, an incredible conversation. And I love that we did this in a way where you get to tell your story. And Carmen is on the episode right before you. So she got to tell her story. And the story of Because of Why is coming together, but also
Yes.
learning about you two individually. And it's just been an amazing conversation. I appreciate your authenticity. I appreciate
Absolutely.
just your just like candid also just declaration of who you are, your faith, your journey, where you're going, who you support. And I'd love for folks to continue to have an opportunity to connect with you and reach out and get to learn more about you, learn more about your work, because likely there could be someone listening who has a child that is in their care, that is in the age group that you work with, or maybe there's a business owner listening that's like, hey, you know what? I'd like to have some conversations. So, what is the best way to stay in touch with you? What kind of cool things should we be looking out for as well?
Yeah. So honestly, the most simplest thing you can do is just text coach to 703-853-5179. And that way we'll respond straight away and everything's taken care of. And
Awesome.
you can also go to our website. It's becauseofwhy.com, ITS becauseofwhy.com. And we're always there. We also are on social media, official because of why. And we're always posting on there. If you just want to
Hmm.
see what we do, some knowledge, some wisdom, just sharing with the world. And that's the best points of contact.
Amazing. And I see y'all all the time.
Oh yeah.
All the places. I think I see y'all the most on Facebook. Whenever I'm scrolling, I'm just like, okay, a reminder over there of the cool things you're doing. So you've heard it here from Coach Nick himself, co-founder of Because of Why. Just really appreciate this conversation that we've had around mindset and the importance of mindset, how to acknowledge it, and also some things to do to actively change that, how to correctly assess maybe where blame belongs, where certain people belong in your life, where certain circumstances are starting and where they are headed. And it's not necessarily where your journey starts that's going to predict where you begin, where you end, but it's more of the actions that you take, the responsibility that you take for your actions. And of course, the basis of who you are at the core and your faith. So it's just been a really, really cool conversation, and I'm really happy that you all tuned in for the conversation. And if you want to stay in touch, I'll put Coach Nick's information in the show notes so you have that, as well as this episode if you want to see us live, chatting, a video, and all the mind blowing. I mean, you probably saw me make all kinds of facial expressions when certain things were said and truth gems were just dropped. So we're this episode will be live on YouTube, and then you'll also find us, I mean, everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, YouTube, Listen Notes. I mean, just go search Wellness with EAC and you will find us on the platform of your choice. Again, Coach Nick, thank you again for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. See you again next Wednesday. And until then, take care and be well.